We walked in the room and Jesse's in Casey's bed. They're watching TV and the baby's with them. I said, Jesse, it's my house, my rules. I said, you have to respect that. If you don't respect that, then, you know, we're going to have an issue because you're not married to my daughter yet. And I said, just because you're engaged or whatever still doesn't change the rules of this house. And I said, you need to respect those. And, I mean, he got very angry, a shouting match. And, you know, to the point where I felt very uncomfortable. And that was the first turning point where I thought, this kid is not a good person for my daughter. I went day by day with Jesse, and he's got a lot of discrepancies. In fact, I wrote down everything as he was talking to me, and he changed the story 2 and 3 times. It was an 18-minute conversation on June 27th that he had with Casey, that she invited him out to Fusions to cheer him up. He told me it was June 27th, and I was writing it as he's talking, and I said, you sure June 27th? He goes, absolutely. It was that Friday that we went out. And I says, well, you talked to her for 18 minutes. Did you hear Caylee in the background? Did you talk about Caylee? He goes, yeah, I asked her where she was, and she said she was with the babysitter at the beach.
Here you actually see grandmother Cindy Anthony pointing the finger at ex-fiancé Jesse Grund, and with us, his father, his family speaking out. Richard Grund is with us. Richard, response?
Typical Cindy Anthony, point the finger at somebody else, do misdirection, get the attention off your daughter, and hope that people believe you.
Well, my question is, even if everything that she just said is true, even if, what does that have to do with Caylee missing?
It doesn't have anything to do with Caylee missing, but like I said, this is typical of, instead of looking at the prime suspect in her own household, she wants you to think it's Jesse or it's Amy, and she talks about Jesse's discrepancies. He clarified one statement with law enforcement. Cindy hasn't said the same thing twice since this began.
And isn't it true that your son took a lie detector test and passed?
Jesse not only took a voluntary lie detector and passed, he went to law enforcement and gave 2 official statements before Cindy's even given one. He gives them all of his phone records. He gives them anything they need to help find Caylee and get out of their way. And by that point, Cindy hasn't done anything. In that interview, if you look, they can't even get her to give them her credit card record. She wants to just give her receipts. Why? Well, it would seem to me that there's something that she doesn't want them to know, or by this point, which is August 1st, I've already heard from other news people in town that they are working an attempt to implicate Jesse. And then I heard from a very reliable source, Leonard Padilla, that this was an active attempt. So what you're hearing is a well-rehearsed effort to get them to look at somebody else other than their daughter.
Let's go to Leonard Padilla, bounty hunter out of Sacramento, California. He actually put up the original $500,000 bond for Casey Anthony to be free from jail before he came off that bond. Leonard Padilla, why the focus on ex-fiancé Jesse Grund? Is it an attempt to suggest that he's got a hairpin trigger anger, and that anger resulted in some harm to little Caylee? Is that where this is going?
No, Cindy realized right away what had happened and who the cause was behind it. She never believed for 1 minute that there was a Zenaida. When I talked to Jose, the very first meeting I had with him, he showed me a card.
You mean Jose Baez, the defense attorney?
Jose Baez, yes. He showed me a card that had been given to him by Casey, and Cindy had knowledge of it, that, you know, expressed Jesse's affection and love for the baby. Well, when you look at that card, you can misread it and misunderstand it, but it was just an affectionate card from an individual that cared very much for a child and the child's mother. Also, Cindy made a point several times of indicating that she felt that Jesse had something to do with the child's disappearance. Jesse was to blame. Jesse was at fault. And myself and my people would sit there and just look at her like, Cindy, you know, come on. You're not talking to somebody that doesn't know what happens in these things. And she would insist on attempting to take your mind and bend it around Jesse constantly.
We are taking your calls live out to Deborah in Virginia. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Nancy. Good to talk with you.
Likewise. What's your question, dear?
A couple of weeks ago, Leonard Padilla had mentioned that EquiSearch had stopped searching for Caylee.
Yes.
Are they going to come back and continue their search, or are there any other search teams that are actually looking for her right now?
Leonard, what do we know?
I do know this, that if you talk to Tim and his people, they were very annoyed and upset at the way they were treated by Cindy, publicly and privately. They were there to do a job. Cindy just wanted them to stand up and say, hey, Caylee's alive and she's in Puerto Rico, or Caylee's alive and Jesse took her away. They didn't want a search to be done in the manner that they constantly do them.
Everybody, we're taking your calls live to Debbie in Georgia. Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
What's your question, dear?
I just, being a new grandmother myself, I don't understand why the grandparents aren't out helping find that baby.
To Lisa Boeski, psychologist and author, Dr. Boeski, I really believe that they think they're choosing to believe the child is still alive.
I don't know, Nancy. I got to say, as I watch the grandparents, I really think they are the only ones that know Casey, truly know her, and I think that they know what she's capable of. I think that Cindy has very mixed emotions about this because I think Caylee was a little bit of a pawn between them. You know, Casey held Caylee against the grandmother Cindy. Grandmother Cindy held her against Casey. And so I think there's a lot of mixed emotions, and I think that's why Cindy goes back and forth between protecting her daughter and then throwing her under the bus. I think that Cindy feels like she could have played a role in this, not purposely, but because of Casey's anger with her.
Let's go straight back out to Jude Pretrimo at WDBO. What about these documents revealing Mom Casey Anthony Googling the name over and over, Zenaida Gonzalez? Explain.
Yeah, and that happened on July 16th, which you'll recall is, you know, right around the time when everything breaks down and her lies start to catch up to her. Investigators are pretty hot on her trail at that point. So, you know, that's what she did. She searched on her home computer, Google searched the name Zenaida Gonzalez. That wasn't the first time that we heard the name, though. If you look at some of the computer documents, we see her talking about that name way back in May.
Anytime Caylee ever stayed away from the house, Casey said she was with Zanny.
Okay.
And it wasn't that often that, you know, maybe a night here or there sporadically, but she always said she was crashing at Zanny's. I mean, I don't recall Caylee being gone over any nights, if any, maybe one. And the only time Casey ever told me, the only place that Caylee would ever stay over was they were crashing at Zanny's. She never told me she was taking her to Ricardo's, never told me she was taking her anywhere else except Zanny's.
We are taking your calls live to Marianne in Pennsylvania. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Nancy. Love your show, and your kids are adorable.
Thank you. What's your question, dear?
My question is regarding Leonard Padilla and his $50,000 that he offered as a reward to information for the children. I know that EquiSearch is not involved anymore, but aren't there other companies he could put that money toward, other investigatory companies that he can put that money toward?
What about it, Leonard?
Obviously, the best in the business is Tim. And if Tim was to tell me that there was another company out there that could do the job better than him, I'd believe him. But I can tell you this. There's no company out there better than Tim's. None at all.